Welcome back to another episode of Paperback Ponderings. This week we are kicking off our first book club chat of the year. Our January book club book was The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson, and we've got a lot to say about it. I think we're going to get some spice simply from diverging opinions, but that is for later. Kyla is going to kick us off with a synopsis first. As always, these episodes, first half spoiler free, second half spoiler full. So if you haven't read this book yet and you are joining us to see if it's worth reading, know that we'll give you ample warnings for when it is time to head on over to the spoiler section, i.e., you should hop off the podcast. So, Kyla, take us away with a little bit about The Raven Scholar. Give us the T on TLDR on the synopsis here.
Yes. So The Raven Scholar currently has a 4.44 out of 33,000 ratings on Goodreads. It just came out in April of last year, so it's doing pretty good so far. It was also a nominee for Reader's Favorite Fantasy in 2025 for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which is really fun. And this one is set in a high fantasy world where there's a competition happening to see who will be the next emperor. So in this world, the emperors have fixed terms of ruling, and after that amount of time, even if they're still alive and well, they have to step down. There's a competition between all the new contenders, and in this world there are a bunch of kind of higher beings that are represented by animals, or like they are animals that represent different personality traits that you would have. And so people, when they come of age in this world, they dedicate themselves to one of these 8 higher beings. And so when this competition comes around, there is one contender representing each of these houses. So that is where the story starts. But as the competition for the throne is kicking off, one of the contenders is murdered. And that leaves us with our main character, Nima, who is the high scholar to the emperor, and she is charged with figuring out the murder. But circumstances end up placing her within the trial itself as well. So she's got a lot on her plate. She's trying to solve this murder, and she is trying to represent her house, competing for the throne, which she doesn't want and doesn't think that she can get. So there's a lot going on. But yeah, I think does that sum it up, do you think?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's the main gist of the story. Find the murderer, identify the next emperor, and don't let the higher beings come back to the realm.
Yes, that is a major theme because it has been foretold that, so these higher beings have come to save the world from catastrophe a certain amount of times in the past, but it has been foretold that the next time they come, they will destroy the world. So people are honoring them, but hoping they never come back the whole time. This one, it also is a little bit hard to nail down because there is so much going on. There's a lot of different plot lines, even beyond those 2 main ones. This story, I think part of what makes it really unique is the narration style, which it's told in third person omniscient point of view through the perspective actually of one of these guardians, one of these higher beings, the Raven. And so you zoom in on a lot of side characters and you learn a lot of their own kind of like mini plots and backstories and stuff that are happening alongside the main plot and Nima's storyline, which I loved. I don't know if Sarah did.
Funnily enough, the narration was not the problem that I had with it. Like, yes, it was difficult to keep track because it was kind of jumping around, but that was less an issue to me. What was more an issue is like all the subplots happening at the same time, and subplots happening that felt either unnecessary, irrelevant, or simply just like creative liberties, but not actually leading anywhere or doing anything. there was a really big theme that I noticed where there was a lot of context, a lot of additional information being thrown at you about history, about the houses, about politics, about class, about their personal histories, individual histories, political histories, legends, experiences of like everyone that's on the page, basically, to the degree where it was like, I don't know what's important and what's not important anymore. Why do I need to know this random fact about one of the contenders' wives' kids?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely get that. There was a lot going on. For me, my perception of it, though, I just felt like it made the world feel so full and like a real, truly existing world with a well-rounded backstory and histories and legends. And all the side characters felt more like I was more interested in them. They weren't just there to fill out the plot. They were there each with their own motivations in the whole story. And I liked diving into all those little backstories. Like, you start out with some right at the beginning, not to get into spoilers, but the backstories, it helped you understand their motivations within the trials themselves, because each of them, like, yes, they're there to become the next emperor, but they kind of all have their own little side motivations as well. So yeah, I don't know, that's part of what I liked about it, is how full it felt in all directions. But I can understand why that would feel like just a lot too.
Yeah, it felt unnecessary. And to your point, I actually don't feel like it felt like it created depth for me.
No?
When certain characters were taken off page, whether they died or they just went on a little quest, a side quest, I didn't care. Like, I didn't care that X happened to one contender. I didn't even really care that one of my favorite contenders was questionably not alive anymore.
I want to know who you're talking about. I think I do know, but
I just, because of the way that it jumped so much, I didn't feel deeply about like any specific character.
Okay.
There was one character that I was like a little bit more invested in their story than anyone else's. But for the most part, maybe two characters I had like an intrigue about. They felt important, but their importance wasn't really highlighted in this book. And ultimately, like, I know that like there's a tale that's being woven together, but I don't know how like masterfully I feel like it's being woven.
Do you think for those side characters that you were invested in, do you think it was setting up for more exploration of that in book 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that there will be more to come from both of those characters in book 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's promising.
It is promising, but it's like I needed to read 600 pages to care about 2 characters in a cast of like 50.
Yeah.
To me, that's a problem.
It is a large cast and it is a long book. And something you mentioned to me, we talked only very briefly about this before recording, but you said, why did there have to be 8 trials and not like 6 or something? And 8, you're right, 8 was a lot, especially when, you know, they're having these trials, but they're also having fights against each other, like scheduled little sparring fights in the morning and the evening of every trial. So with that, yeah, I do think some of that probably could have been tightened up a little bit, but I think also with the amount of guardians, like to make it work with the world system, there had to be 8.
Yes, but the author chose 8 guardians. The author could have chosen 5 guardians or 6 guardians.
That is true.
You know? Why did we need 8?
But I think, like, for me, as the story went on and we got to know the different characters that were a part of each house, the houses or the 8 guardians each felt very distinct. And they feel like they really do represent a section of society or like a group of people who have that as kind of their dominant trait and like way of life. And I feel like in weaving a mystery where there was a lot of different players involved and like to have the confusion of so many people involved and who is the one that did the murdering and, you know, what was behind all of it, having more characters, I think, benefited that in keeping it mysterious.
I guess, but I don't think that like we needed to have 8 guardians to have a mystery about a death. Like what value did the monkey bring? I know why he was important in the story, but could that character not have been filled by another?
Yeah.
Maybe an advisor. Maybe an abbess.
No, that's very true. Yeah, I do feel like the monkey, in terms of dividing up personality traits to well represent all the different types of people out there, the monkey maybe not the most relevant, but I also like I wasn't upset about its presence, you know?
No, and like it's fine. I wasn't upset about it. It just like it really did feel unnecessary. You can create a really amazing mystery with 3 characters. You don't need 50 characters to create a good mystery. You know, like, I don't know. If I'm going to read all of this background and have like 7,000 different names, I know Havoc's parents' names. I know Havoc's grandparents' names. Do I need to know Havoc's grandparents' names? I don't think so.
No, it's true. You don't need to. I think maybe that's just a style preference thing, because for me, I like that I know his backstory, and I like that I know who his parents were and his aunt and the whole lore about his aunt. And like, not necessary. I don't think the story would have been that affected if that wasn't there. But I personally was like, yay, more details. So maybe it's just a preference thing. Like, if people are debating whether or not you want to read this, like, just definitely go into it knowing it is elaborate. It's an elaborate world. There's a lot of details. You're signing yourself up for a journey within this world. It's not like a quick action-packed fantasy book.
I think it could have had the exact same premise, but instead of going broad strokes, we could have gone deeper. And I think maybe the narration was the problem. Maybe it was doing too much in the story. But I think like if there's a story with that many characters and I don't care about a single one of them, I think that's a problem. I didn't even really care if our main character died.
You know what? I did want to talk about that. I don't know if that should be saved for the spoilery section, but I also didn't feel too much for our main girl, Nima herself. I think she was not unlikable, but I don't think she was necessarily overly likable either.
Yeah.
So she was not the highlight of the story for me by any means. I did have a few characters that I was pretty invested in and I was very interested in. But
yeah, there were moments that were very funny to me as well. Like there was some hidden humor, like some very quiet humor that was baked into a lot of the narrative. But yeah, I think I just really value a deep understanding of the character that I'm reading.
So maybe more of a third person singular narration would have been better to really hone in on the important part of the story instead of this sweeping view of everything.
Yeah. I think it would have lessened some of the noise a little bit.
So what was your overall rating?
I almost gave it a 2. I did.
I'm surprised you didn't, actually. I thought you were gearing up for a real bad one there.
No, I'm being very cynical right now. I gave it a 3. I think like I do agree the world building was pretty spectacular. I loved the premise. I loved the idea of it, but I did not like the execution of it.
Okay.
Like I really liked the trials. I really liked the dynamics between the characters, like the camaraderie, but also the rivalry that was happening. Like,
yeah.
I really enjoyed the complexities of respecting your competitor, but still needing to fight them and beat them and win. I did enjoy some of the history. I just felt like the history could have been organized better because it was jumping around so much. Like the narration was all over the place. Sometimes you just couldn't even figure out which day of the year we were in. Like, you know? There was a couple times where you were getting essentially events of the past, stuff that had happened either 50, 20, 50, 100,000 years ago. and you had no idea. You were trying to rack your brain and figure out which princess we're talking about now. You know?
I didn't find that for myself. Like, I felt pretty like I understood what was happening. I had a pretty good grasp of all the names and stuff. I wasn't paying attention to the dates. Like, it was throwing out some dates occasionally, and I was glossing right over those. But yeah.
Well, it was hard because a lot of the female empresses and dragon rulers of Helia have Y's in their names. So there were a lot of like similar-ish names. And
I will definitely give you that one. There was Yasthala, Yasila, Yanara. I don't know, at least 3 Y names. Maybe a character list in the back would have been good.
Yes. Yeah, a character list. It was cool though in the beginning.
On the other hand, I gave it 4.5 stars. A little different part of the ballpark than you. Yeah, I loved the depth of the world. When I first started reading it, you're getting hit with a lot of history right off the bat. That I was kind of like, okay, like I was not off to a quick start with that book because you're all of a sudden trying to understand all this backstory instead of just getting going on the present day story. But once I got into it, I would say the closer I got to the halfway mark, I didn't want to put it down as I was reading it, and I really loved the world. I felt like we really had a full view of this whole continent that's shown on the map. I felt like I had an understanding of all the different regions that were on the map, which I really appreciated, that it wasn't just like one city that we were looking at with a whole map that never gets talked about. I felt like I understood the types of people that lived in different areas, maybe not all of them, but in a good many of them, as well as I liked the guardians and the division of the people into the different houses and learning about the monasteries that they would go to train at. That were not like,
that was cool. I liked the houses, and I liked the organization of the world. I just thought it was too much to do all of that complexity, learning the characteristics and the traits of the ox, and the characteristics and the traits of the fox, and the characteristics and the traits of the dragon, how the dragon fits into everything. Like all these things. And tell me about the coup that happened 10 years ago, the girl that was exiled, the woman who cursed the blade, the girl who got abandoned on an island. Like, that's just a little too much. That's all I'm saying. I think I love the idea. I love the houses. I do love the houses. I just didn't love all of the other shit.
Okay, can I make a comparison?
Okay.
Because in a way, the depth of the world and all that stuff that you just mentioned reminded me a little bit of when you read the Harry Potter books and you have... Just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. So you have the main plot of Harry's in school, but Harry's also solving mysteries while he's learning the history of this world. But you learn about the present day, but you also learn about the parents' generation and the thing they had with Voldemort back then, before all the stuff happened with Harry's parents. You have the division of the houses. You also, like, we learn things through Harry Potter about Lupin and his whole werewolf thing. And that's all, like, you know, that's another generation backstory, side story that's not immediately relevant to Harry's plot, but it adds to the depth of everything that's going on around him so that it makes the whole world feel more full. And then you have mentions of like the other creatures, the werewolves and the giants and whatever else in Harry Potter that I think just flushed it out, and I think that's part of what makes that world so good. And I felt the same way, not saying it's a similar story because they're very different stories, but just I felt that way about
there were a lot
one.
of elements in Harry Potter too. I think the main difference for me is like Harry Potter is 8 books, the Raven Scholar is 1 book.
True, but it is also the size of 3 to 4
first
of
3 put together. Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and I think that it can be done well. Like, there are plenty of books that manage to build a rich contextual immediate environment and uncover the history and weave a mystery through, you know, like there are definitely books that can do it right. I don't know if this one did that for me.
Okay.
But I did like, I mean, Harry Potter had 4 houses. This one has 8. So we literally doubled.
And one thing that I actually did like in comparing the two series, I like that in this one, you're kind of choosing that affiliation for life, like for your adult life. And it's not just like your school colors.
Yeah.
It's
I did like that too.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. Should we get into the spoilers?
Yes, but before we do, now that you bring that up, which house did you kind of identify the most with?
Ooh, I think if I had to be somewhere, I would probably be monkey or raven.
Okay.
You know, I'm into the arts and the creativity stuff with a lot of my hobbies center around that. So I think I would fit in there, but I also like books and learning stuff. So yeah. What about you?
I could see the raven for you. I would say for me, I identified most with the ox, but I think I just liked Fen the most.
Fen was really good. He was a great guy.
I definitely don't relate to the fox as much.
No.
I really liked Shal.
Me too.
I liked Shal, but I would say I identified most with the ox.
Okay. Yeah, the ox people are very steadfast, hardworking. You know, they're not playing political games. They're just genuine, loyal peacemakers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, contrary to my opinions on this book, I am a peacemaker.
Yeah,
people are gonna hate me. Whoever listens to this and loved this book, I'm sorry. I wanted to love it. I loved the beginning as well. I actually had a separate experience than you.
Yeah, you did. We talked about this a little bit. Tell them what happened to you.
So I did the classic thing of not reading the back of the book, which, you know what? I deserve a little bit of hate for that because I should have read the back of the book. But I was just upset because there's a character that's introduced in the beginning of the book that we don't see again, but they set into motion a lot of events and influence a lot of our contenders through the trials that are important to the story and the plot. But I spent the first 30%. This is another gripe I have with this book, okay? Why did it take me 30% to not learn any new information? Like the main plot of this book was not advanced beyond the back of the book until 25 to 30% in.
Yeah, it did take a while.
It took 30% of the book for me to learn something that I didn't already know from the back of the book.
Yeah, it did take a while to get going,
That's
but
wild.
I think like it was establishing the world. You're meeting all the different contenders, which I did like the way that it introduced us because you meet a few of them early on, like Shawl and Ruko and stuff. And then you meet Kane separately. And then, so you're not like slammed with 8 contenders to learn right away. I liked the way it introduced them slowly so I could actually differentiate them. But it is a slow moving book for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got you bamboozled yourself a little bit.
I bamboozled myself. No, I can't play the victim here.
Yeah,
I have no one to blame but myself with that one.
Yeah, so you're like waiting for that first story to continue. Meanwhile, if you had read the back, you would have known that the book is following somebody else.
Book is about. And I was like, oh my god, who's this Nima chick?
In your defense, I do think that initial thing in the story should have been a prologue, not the first 30 pages of the book. Although I do think it was too long to be a prologue, and maybe that's why they made it the beginning of the book. But it was a little bit misleading, like what is going on here.
Yeah, or maybe like make the first 30% of the book novella, like a prequel almost.
Yeah, but I think that's a bit of a it makes for a weird entry to the series because I think you need to know all that. Like, I think not knowing that whole story of Yana at the beginning would take away from your knowledge of the characters and their motivations throughout the story. But when people approach a series, not everybody is going to start with a novella.
I guess, but like Throne of Glass did it great. Like, you didn't need to read Assassin's Blade to enjoy Throne of Glass. I don't think you needed to read Yana's story to enjoy this story. It definitely influenced the story 110%.
Yeah.
But I don't think you needed to have read it to have appreciated Nima's story by itself. Like, we could have uncovered all that information. We could have uncovered Nima's involvement in Yana's story. We could have uncovered Ruko's background. We could have uncovered Shal's background. Like, all of this did not need to happen in the prologue, prequel, first 30 pages of whatever. Like, I think it could have been separate.
Yeah, it could have been like slowly unveiled throughout the book kind of thing.
Woven into the actual story as we're reading the story.
Yeah, that could have been a better way to do it maybe. But I liked that it wasn't just like told to us that this is what happened, because I think seeing it, like getting to know and then sympathize with Yana a little bit was important, as well as to see Ruko in his kind of innocent youth and then with what happens, as well as to see how Shal treated her and to learn the backstory from the child about the mother. And yeah, I just think like I'm glad we got to see it and we weren't just told this is what happened 16 years ago. But I think we should move on to the spoilers.
Okay. On to the spoilers we go. I doubt that anyone hasn't read the book if they've stuck around this long.
I know. I just want to speak openly about some stuff.
All right, speak openly. Say your stuff.
Okay. One of my favorite parts of this book was unexpectedly Ruko.
Yes.
Yeah? You agree?
110%.
Was he one of the ones that you were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, he
good.
was pretty much the only character that I was like pretty invested in.
Okay, I'm glad you agree because, yeah, we start out this book and we see Ruko do something absolutely awful. And I think I texted you and I was like, I cannot believe this guy. Like, who does that? And then you go on to really come to sympathize with him and want good things for him and to just be generally interested in his thought process. And I just thought like that transition from hating him to sympathizing with him was very interesting.
I liked that he never tried to justify his actions. Like, someone who does something that vile, you expect them to try to rationalize their choices. And I really enjoyed, like, it was refreshing to see that he didn't try and rationalize or justify. He never tried to like convince people of anything. He was just unapologetically existing with one sole purpose in mind. I enjoyed that, but also the glimpses of like humanity that we got with him, the moments of tenderness or vulnerability that we got made you think that he wasn't so selfishly driven. Like, I think he had a moment as a child to give in to his desires, like what his greatest dream and wish. He had a moment and he was weak and he gave in to his biggest dream. But I think with his aging, you saw a little bit more capacity for like critical analysis, I guess. Like, he could think a little bit more long term about his choices.
Yes, and I think too, with what he did as a child, you come to learn throughout the story several factors. I mean, not some of them you know right away, but like, one, he was a 16-year-old boy who just felt like he got betrayed by his twin, right? Like, Yana was about to steal his dream from him, and everything glosses over that. But like, we learn at the beginning, Yana had no desire to do that, and she knew that that's what he wanted, and she did swipe that right out from underneath him for a second. So I don't blame him for being upset. And I also understand that as a teenager, you don't know how to manage your emotions like that as well. So I think it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense that he lashed out the way he did, and knowing what we did later about the fact that he was literally possessed by the tiger at the time, it makes sense that the tiger told him to do that. Like,
would act the way that it did. I also think he had just been betrayed not only by his twin sister but also by his father, who continuously highlighted his weaknesses in favor of her strengths.
yes.
Right? Like his father always pitted them against each other, had a clear favorite. There was a clear favorite. I think Yanara was the favorite of both of her parents. And I think like that takes time, but that also like affects or influences your inner development, right? Like to say that he, like, not discrediting or discounting what he did was wrong, but he was also like a teenager with selfish motivations, who was possessed by a guardian, who had been told his whole life that he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Even right there in that moment, like, him and Yana are twins. It's not like she was older than him, and then they show up on their day of reaching age majority or whatever, and the emperor is like, Yana, your father chose you, not your brother.
Yeah, exactly. When it's like, why does it matter? Not why does it matter, but like, why can't they both go to the tiger school?
Yeah.
If that's what they wanted.
Yeah. And that's why too, like, so we learn obviously later that it was Andrew, and we learn why he wanted Ruko there, obviously because he wanted to steal his soul from him, which we'll get into that later, but but I remember, like, I was thinking throughout the whole story, first of all, the emperor is the one who allowed it to happen. Like, the emperor was like, okay, Ruko, you decide. But then he easily could have been like, you're stupid, that's not happening, I'm not exiling this child. But he doesn't.
A mistake that she did when she was little.
Yeah, which is like not even, like, all she did was hold on to her father's stuff, the father that she lost. Like, it makes sense that she would keep on to his possessions like that. It doesn't mean that she's a traitor. But then when we learned that it was Andrin, I was like, how could he, as her father, have exiled her like that?
Yeah, I'm low-key even more confused about that, actually. Like, when I was finishing up the book, I was like, wait a minute. So her father put all of this into motion, unless it was ultimately to achieve the vision that he had seen in his dragon challenge, which is that he, like, steals, or that his son ends up on the throne.
I think.
And he was trying to, like, put the motivation in Ruko to, like, strive for that throne no matter what. And I mean, like, what else does he have to live for? Nobody wants to be his friend. Nobody wants to know this man. Everyone is afraid of him. Everyone, I would say, like, respect, but fearful respect, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what was the motivation there?
The moment Ruko chose to exile his sister, he had to commit to that path.
Yeah.
He had to win it. Otherwise, he did that to her for nothing. And so, and I think, like, when it was explained later, it was like the king, I think his first choice was Yana. Like, I think he does say to Ruko later in the book, your sister was always better than you, which also hard blow.
Yeah.
But he says, and he knew that Ruko was not as hard of a worker, and he needed something that would anger Ruko enough that he would have the drive,
motivate him,
and that he would actually go the distance and be successful.
Yeah. But even still, like, this man was doing all kinds of chameleon spells and shit. Like, could he not have gotten Shalworthy to, like, fake Yanara's death in the Dolrum Forest and just, I don't know. I was convinced the whole book that the bear contender was Yanara come back to life somehow.
Who was the bear contender? Oh, Katsan?
Katsan, yeah.
Yeah, I was convinced that Shal actually helped her escape in
too.
secret.
Like, I thought Yanara was going to come back. I really did.
I was really hopeful that she would. And I really liked that, even though she didn't, I really liked that we got to see the humanization of Ruko in the moment when he thought that she was still alive and he went to meet her in the courtyard.
My heart. Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, also that whole storyline. Like, keeping us hopeful for a reunion and a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And hoping that Ruko has that moment of redemption at some point and reconciliation with his sister. And then having that all wrapped up in the murder of Gaeta. And then all of that wrapped up in the bigger plot of the corrupt emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And then all that's wrapped up in the big old coup that's going on. Like, holy F. That was some crazy shit.
That was some crazy shit. It really was. Yeah. Yeah, I was so hopeful the whole time that she was not really dead. I think even when Shawl said, like, we hear early on, like, Ruko comes up to Nima and says, did they see the body? Like, is it confirmed that she's dead? And Nima says, yes, Shawl saw the body. And I was thinking, yeah, but, like, he probably set her free, didn't he? And then he didn't. And then it wasn't until Benna that I really believed it, because Benna had no reason to lie about seeing the body.
Yes, I agree. That's when my heart just, like, clenched a little bit, because I was like, oh, she do be real dead. And Benna saw it.
Yeah, and seeing even, like, the moment in the cell when Ruko goes to talk to Benna and Benna confirms that she was dead, and you can literally see Ruko's face drop, like the hope just drains from his eyes. And the moment when we see Yazila, the mother, thinks for a moment that her daughter is alive too, because the dragon scale oil that poisoned Nima, and she has this moment of, it was Yana, because Yana is the only one who knew where she kept it, and then having to see that light leave her eyes again.
Yeah, heart-wrenching.
And so Ruko's evolution of slowly starting to be a kind person, like in his own way, in his own reserved way, when he goes back and saves Tala, and then when he's happy, he's like visibly relieved to see that Tala is still alive in that moment at the end after, like, he wins. Yeah. And then to see what happens to him with the Emperor, like, I want book 2, because I want them to go and rescue him. I want Nima and Kane and Tala to rescue him.
Yeah, I am loving the, like, direction of the contenders banding together to, like, stop this corrupt emperor. I do love that. I don't know. I'm so torn, because I feel like I can't do another book like that. Like, that was just so long and so tiring, and I lost my interest in it, like, constantly while I was reading it. But I also, like, do want to see Ruko find his found family. I really liked the relationship that Benna and Ruko were and are starting to develop.
Yeah.
I think there's, like, some really sweet, like, wholesome moments. I'm gonna cry. It's so sad. But, like,
hates the book, cries.
Hates the book, cries about it. But there's just, like, such sweet moments. And even, like, Benna could have, in that cell with nothing left to lose, say, Yanara hated you and Yanara didn't deserve what happened to her, and, like, could have made Ruko feel bad. Like, she could have gone in on him, and instead she said, Yanara was my best friend, and she knew that you had a moment of weakness. Like, she still loved you.
Yeah.
Like, I support you, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, that's really freaking cute, man.
It was very noble of her, because she was holding back details. It said it to us. She thinks in her mind, like, I'm not going to say it to him, but, like, these are the horrible things that happen, but I'm not going to tell him because I can see that he is feeling the guilt over it. Like, he came here because he wants her to be alive. Yeah. And he has matured. It's been, 16 years since that happened? Or 8 years, maybe?
8 years, I think.
So it's been 8 years. He's gone from being a teenager to a young man who has become very disciplined and very reflective through his meditation and stuff. Like, imagine growing up and knowing that you did something so horrible and just regretting it so hard, but you can't admit even to yourself that regret, because that would just break you. Like,
yeah, it would mean that your entire purpose is no longer.
Yeah. So yes, I was happy that Benna, even though Yana was her best friend and she saw what happened to her, was able to forgive Ruko and show up for him. I loved the like Team Ruko.
Yeah, me too. And I also loved Benna as a character, actually. Just like side note, I knew there was something fishy going on with her, but like I thought Benna was Yanara for a minute, but then I was like, well, like what would have had to change with her appearance? Like maybe Benna is Yanara and she had to do the whole like chameleon spell thing. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
But I think that Benna was a fun character to watch and engage with. I really liked like the care that she had for Nima despite it all. And like, yeah, she had gone through and is only in the story to enact some like childish revenge plot that her and her best friend cooked up, you know, when they were little. But like, I just thought it was really fun the way that not only just the storyline of Benna, but also like the character of Benna, like the humor of Benna and the very like honest integrity of Benna, I guess, like just unapologetically herself and really funny and bubbly, and like she has reasons to be sad. She left home at 14 to go work and make her way to the palace so that one day she could, you know, have her and Yanara's revenge. Like she's had an arguably difficult life, but she's just got like such a great disposition and temperament. And yeah, I liked Benna. Yeah,
she provides a much needed lightness to the story that like otherwise it is quite heavy. It tonally is just like heavy, but she shows up and she's like, oh my god, I would love to do that. I would just love to do that. And it's just, it's nice. It is nice.
Same
and
with
like
Fen.
Yeah, I liked Fen a lot. He was a very steady, I mean, he fits in with the Ox thing, but he's just a very steady, calming presence that like is just somebody you know you can rely on. And I loved that he threw that like backyard barbecue party instead of the big fancy gala that the Tigers were having.
Yeah, I loved that. I did find though that Andrin's reveal at the end and the coming of the Guardians to be very like Scooby-Doo-esque reveal of the villain vibes, like I've cracked the curse and bah, bah, bah. Like there, like it was just like a really like awkward, almost like comical villain reveal, if that makes sense.
I do see what you mean. Like he went from being very clever and strategic in his having to portray Burson the whole time to all of a sudden being like the cackling maniacal villain.
Yeah.
Which I didn't love.
No, it's like the Scooby mask came off and he was like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, my evil empire. Yeah. Yeah.
This has been my whole plan for the last decades, you know? Like you could just see the mastermind like fingers twiggling and you're like, what the hell?
Totally. I was actually picturing Andrin as Littlefinger from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Like that's the image that I just had in my mind. But I did like that aside, I did like the twist that we thought that it was actually Gedrin who was pretending to be Burson, but then it was actually Andrin who was pretending to be Gedrin who was pretending to be Burson. And like when it's mentioned when Benna is in the prison that there's another prisoner who's been here for a long time, immediately I was like, who could it be? Like, could it be Andrin? But like, no, you know, his body was seen on the steps and like, could it be, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. So I was surprised. Were you?
I had that moment too. I was like, I feel like it's Andrin. Like for some reason, the brother was not the main suspect that I had in the dungeon. But then I was like, or maybe it's Burson. Like I didn't really think
the
like,
real
the
Burson.
brother, the real Burson. Yeah, I thought it was like either the real Burson or Andrin.
Yeah, that the real Burson like actually recovered, but Gedrin was like, nope, I'm taking power.
Exactly. Yeah. Or that Burson had recovered, but so did Andrin, and Andrin just like recovered more.
Yeah.
Before Burson and like took the throne with the chameleon spell or something. I don't know. I definitely had a feeling Andrin was not dead. The only thing that I kept coming back to regarding Andrin was that like surely he wouldn't kill his own daughter. The daughter he claimed to like more than any of his other kids. So like I just kept coming back to that and being like, there's no way. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. No, that's like the one thing that I would say I don't love is that Andrin has shaped up to be kind of a senseless villain. Like, he's just the big bad villain who wants the power. And I prefer my villains to have more depth. Like, a little bit more je ne sais quoi. Like, give me a convincing reason why you're a villain, you know? Because I think all villains, to a degree, you can relate to them. That's what makes a really appealing and appetizing villain, is that you kind of hate yourself, but you also relate. Like, you're like, ooh, I kind of get it, you know? Yeah.
But for him, I don't get it. Like, it just seems very power hungry. That's it.
Yeah.
Which is less humanizing. Like, no wonder I felt like he was just the maniacal villain cackling from the throne.
Well, especially when you compare him to Ruko, who we think is a villain for a large part of the story, but who you very much sympathize with and you're kind of rooting for him at the same time that you're hating him. So I think that made the comparison a little bit stark, but yeah. And also, I did want to mention as well, with Benna and her involvement in the murder plot and how she was the one who inserted the dagger into Gaida's back. I didn't love how we found out, like how Benna just came up to Nima and was like, I have to tell you something. And then Nima was like, yes, I already know. Like, I wanted Nima to figure it out.
Yeah. I did feel like a lot of the mystery of the book was not a mystery. It was just like Nima gathering facts and coming to conclusions, but there was no actual missing puzzle pieces. It was like she just followed the thread and got to the killer.
Yes.
You know, there wasn't a lot of stumped moments that Nima encountered. This was another thing that I just kind of found very frustrating when it came to the mystery of the killer. Was like, it just felt like the resolution, the solution, the unpacking of the mystery, the plot felt very effortless.
Yeah, which possibly makes sense that like a character like Nima, who is used to doing research kind of thing, would simply follow the threads and end up there. But I think also trying to weave this mystery plot in with the trials, with making Nima a contender and having no time to go off solving the mystery and looking for clues. I think in that sense, maybe it would have benefited from like a little less going on so that Nima could focus on the mystery.
Yeah, or we as the reader could follow the thread too. Because even when Gaida was murdered and then Nima was kind of following the threads, which led to the unveiling that the emperor is the imposter emperor. Like, finding that information didn't feel groundbreaking in the way that it should have been.
Yeah, like I was definitely surprised, but I would say that was a theme throughout the book. The reveals of moments, I was like, oh, interesting, but I wasn't like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
I think it could have been more impactful. Like if it was written just a little bit differently.
Yeah. I agree.
Quite a bit more like, oh my God. Instead of like, huh.
Like, shoot, didn't see that coming, but
what a surprise.
It wasn't like life-changing though.
Well, exactly, but I feel like uncovering the mystery of the emperor being a fraud this whole time, that should have been like a big fucking deal. And it wasn't. It was just a random thing that was discovered in a random study from a random piece of paper in a random book.
Yeah.
Anyways, what else you've got?
Okay, a couple things. I just wanted to say, so I know you were saying like with all the histories and the stories and stuff, but like truly some of the stories that we got within this book. Like, for example, Ysila and the Dragon, her whole backstory, was a story that I was like, if this was the plot of a book, like, I do think this would be a book that I would like to read. Same with Benna and Yana's story. Like, I do, like, if this story had followed Yana from the beginning like you wanted it to, I think that would have been a great story too. Like, to see Yana's whole, like, getting to the edge and befriending Benna and maybe escaping, like, that could have been a whole other book too that I would have been really interested in. Even the backstory of the previous generation's trials, so like Andrin, Burson, Fen being in that too, sounds like it was an interesting story. Like, I just was interested, and I think that's why I liked the presence of all those. Oh, and this leads me to, because the fox story was one of them, I wanted to say that I loved the fox as a character.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I liked the fox as a character. And this is what I was alluding to earlier in the episode, where I was like, if Kane's dead, I don't actually care, and that's a problem, because I liked Kane. I liked Kane's relationship with Nima. I liked the potential of their rekindling. There wasn't anything about their relationship or friendship that I didn't like. But when the fox took over Kane's body, I was like, huh, that sucks.
Yeah, that is fair.
But I agree. I like the fox as well. To your point about like all these individual stories, I think that's my problem, is that there was so much that all of those could have been their own stories. They could have been their own little mini quills, mini novellas within the story.
Yeah.
Even if we had just organized it that way. Like, you know how in Curious Tides, how you've got like it divided into parts, and then between the parts there's also the legends, and the legends is where you learn a lot about like the lore and the history and the magic and the blah blah blah. Just give me that. Just give me one of those in between the parts, so I don't have to be wondering what the hell I'm reading and which century I'm in. Like,
yeah, so it's like
the story of the dragon.
It's removed from the main plot, and it's in a clear divider. Like, the pages in Curious Tides were like black pages, white text during that part.
Yes.
So you could see this is different from the main story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see that.
I think like I loved as well the mini stories. I did not like the Fox's story, because at that point I was like, I don't want to read another random story for the next 5% of this book, because I read it on Kindle. I know it was 5% of the book.
Yeah.
But the fox as a character is very wily and fun. And
he was a fun character. And I wanted to ask, in relation to the possessions, how did you feel about that whole plot line? Because like, as that was starting to reveal itself that was the direction it was going in, I had a bit of a moment of wariness where I was like, I hope that this doesn't go in a direction that I don't like, where the gods become far too involved in the story. And so I was happy in the end with how limited that ended up being. But yeah, where did you stand with that?
I found it kind of confusing sometimes. Like, I didn't really understand sometimes like what we were working up to or toward. I like the idea of the fragments though. I liked that there was fragments of the guardian that can become corporeal and become little guide dogs, you know?
Yeah.
That was fun. I did enjoy that. But yeah, the whole body kind of possession, not a vibe to me.
It also was starting to feel, you know, we had Nima, who was possessed by the Raven, and Saul for a while. And then we find out that Kane is possessed by the fox, and then Ruko has the tiger in him. And, you know, like, they're kind of everybody was possessed for a second there, and I was like, where is this going? But
yeah, like, are we all just like vehicles for the Guardians at this point? Like, they've been here the whole time.
But I do like the way that it went. And totally off topic, but I was just looking at my list of things that I wanted to say. I don't think that Nima deserved the hate that she got for writing the Order of Exile.
I agree.
Because if she didn't write it, the Emperor just would have told somebody else to. Like, it wasn't like he would have changed his mind if she refused to write it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think that, like, that being the foundation of why Cain and Nima fell apart felt a little weak to me. And I understand, like, you'd have opinions about it, but at the same time, like you said, if she didn't do it, someone else would have. She wasn't special in that regard. If anything, she was doing a favor to Yanara, because did she want her beautiful calligraphy to be engraved on this person's body, or some random Joe Schmo?
True.
Who barely has literacy skills.
Exactly.
You have the most beautiful calligraphy in the realm. That's, you know, something.
And I think there's a good chance that the Emperor would have murked Nima if she was like, no, sorry, I'm not gonna follow your order. Like,
yeah,
she very well might have just died. So
yeah, it wasn't so clear cut.
let's talk about predictions for book 2 quickly. What do you see happening in book 2?
If anyone were to rally the commoner troops who've been exiled, it would be Cain, because he knows where they are.
Yeah.
There's no foxes left, so Cain is the only one who, like, actually knows where these people are, how to get to them.
The second book, the title is The Fox in Winter. No cover or description yet, but that definitely suggests Cain's involvement.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I would definitely think, to some degree, we're going to see kind of like a rising up of the common folk. I will not be reading the second book, though, so you will have to tell me.
I'll fill you in. I will definitely be buying it as soon as it's out. I'm very eagerly waiting for news.
You'll have to keep me updated on Ruko.
Yes, I will.
His iron mask was giving Aelin.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I do think it throughout the whole story, when Nima was like, oh, I need to start fighting now for the throne because, like, if it can't be Cain, Ruko's the only one left. And I was like, what about Shaul? Like, I think Shaul would make a great emperor.
I agree. I'm very intrigued about his, like, commitment to Nistala.
Yeah, and, like, what
Where
life is going to look like now with them on the Dragon Empire. And she made it very clear at the end that she was pretending to work with Andrin and she actually hated him. So, like, do we have ulterior motives here?
Yeah.
What's going on? Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really, no. It had a lot of potential for me.
I'm sorry it didn't live up.
I know. I'm sad about it, but it is what it is. I'm also deep in my, like, I can't find a book that I want to read to save my life. So I'm probably very biased when it comes to this story.
Oh, well, I am sorry that you didn't love it. I am happy that I did love it because I really wanted to. I know 3 other people on Bookstagram right now who are currently reading it and also loving it. So I am glad.
Yeah, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem, but...
Well, that was everything we have to say on The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. Let us know where you stand. Were you team loved it or team hated it? Reach out to us on Instagram at paperback.ponderings. We definitely want to know your thoughts because maybe you can be the tiebreaker between us on whether this was a great book or a flop. But thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.